have musical superstar Moby joining us. So you all know Moby because in the 90s, his music took over the universe, and he's been treating us to groundbreaking hits ever since. So you also know that he is a champion for animals, but you may not know that Moby is a longtime friend of PCRM. He is a member of our President's Council, and he has helped move our mission forward by working with us on so many campaigns over the years. So we'll hear from Moby immediately after Dr. Barnard's update. So let me share my screen here. And each week, I have the pleasure of thanking you for supporting PCRM's work. And today, let me invite you to help us with an urgent need. The Physicians Committee just wrapped up a pilot program to bring the power of plant-based nutrition to communities being hardest hit by COVID-19. We call it Fighting COVID with Food, and it was such a success that we're expanding the program to reach even more people. So this is where we need your support. Fighting COVID with Food is a series of 8 classes online, and the next series begins August 25th. That is less than 2 weeks away. So the big cost here is recruiting the participants, and our promotional efforts are going to target cities across the country, including Los Angeles, Houston, Raleigh, and other cities where there's a disproportionate vulnerability to the effects of COVID-19. So funding's needed to reach people all over the country before that first class starts on August 25th. So that's where we need your help. If you are able to help us by donating to this effort, we have someone who will double your donation up to $50,000. So we could use your help right now. And if you're able to donate in any amount, please go to PCRM.org. You'll see a red banner at the top of the page with a donate button, and that's where you can make a donation to have your gift doubled. So thank you very much. So now it's time to add your name and where you're calling in from in the chat box. And let me turn it over now to the Physicians Committee's President and Founder, Dr. Neal Barnard, for a mission critical update.
Well, thank you, Betsy. Thank you to all of you for joining us. I'm so delighted. It's wonderful to see everybody jumping into the chat box and mentioning where they're from. Folks from, in fact, it's whizzing by faster than I can keep up. Thank you. It's so wonderful to have you with us. Please do say hello, and we'll be able to know everybody who's been on the call. Thank you. If you have been a PCRM member for a long time, or if you're brand new to our work, thank you for joining us. We will be talking with Moby in just a few minutes, but before we do, I would like to give you a quick update on some of the things that have been happening. In fact, let me share my screen if I can do that appropriately. There we go. Okay. This is a picture of our International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine. Betsy, is that coming through?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's me with Kim Williams, the former president of the American College of Cardiology. We have had this conference now since 2013 every single year because it's a way to bring medical expertise and scientific expertise into the plant-based movement. As you know, if we're hoping to get animals off the plate and to cut into this toll that currently means that Americans eat 1 million animals every hour, if we're going to stop that, we need every possible motivation for people to get the animals off their plate. And a big part of that is to show that it's unhealthy, to show that it's not necessary, in addition to showing how cruel it is. So every year we bring hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doctors to Washington, D.C. for the International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine. They get totally pumped up learning about the power of a vegan diet to help with heart disease and diabetes and cancer prevention and all of these things. But this year the pandemic intervened. So we went online, and I'm happy to tell you that despite the fact that we had to pivot and make it a virtual conference, it was a smashing success. It was last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We had a huge number of participants. In fact, it was really for the first time where we were able to have people in Europe and as well as people on the West Coast and in Hawaii all be able to come in because it was virtual. So in some ways it was easier than before. So anyway, that was wonderful. Also, I know that all of us have been concerned about the live animal markets. These are the places that brought us COVID-19. And we have been working to stop not only the live animal markets that are there in China and Asia, but they are in the United States. In New York City alone, there are 80 live animal markets. We have introduced a bill in the New York State legislature to ban them. While that is rumbling slowly through the legislative process in Albany, New York, and a similar bill will be introduced in California, I'm happy to tell you that Governor Cuomo in New York has already continued a pre-existing moratorium on any new markets. So if somebody says, hey, I'd like to start a live animal market, it is illegal and it's not going to happen. But we need to knock out the ones that are there now, and that's why we need legislation. So I'll keep you posted on that. Betsy mentioned fight COVID with food. This has been the greatest thing because the pandemic came in. And because if a person has diabetes, their mortality was much higher than if they didn't have diabetes. Same with hypertension, same with obesity. And because a vegan diet is a way to tackle all of those things, we thought, well, why not go to communities that are being ravaged by this and say, in addition to wearing a mask, in addition to social distancing and hygiene and all these things, let's get our bodies as healthy as we can, and that means a plant-based diet. So through social media, we geo-targeted communities of greatest need and invited people to learn about a simple plant-based diet. The first class, in the first hour, we had 902 participants, mostly from economically disadvantaged urban areas. And we continued for 8 weeks, and it was a smashing success. I have to say, it was just wonderful to see the enthusiasm of people learning for the first time about the vegan diet and adopting this and sharing their family with their families about going plant-based. It was so heartwarming. So we want to do this again and again and again and again. And the class is not expensive for us to do. We do it via Zoom. What's expensive is the social media geo-targeting to let people know about it. So we want to go into LA, and that doesn't mean necessarily Beverly Hills. It means the parts of town where maybe a vegan diet is a totally new concept. And that's true in Detroit, and that's true in Chicago, and that's true in Memphis, and that's true in every city where there are people suffering from this disease. The outpouring of response has been huge. And the idea that we can turn this horrible thing of a pandemic into yet another important reason to get the animals off your plate, that's important. So thanks to everybody for helping us do this. All right, this is where we started in these cities, but we now need to go to the West Coast, and we'll see. It's 8 weeks. It's a Zoom program. We're going to do it again and again. You're going to change the world. Let me talk about the dietary guidelines. The dietary guidelines for Americans dictate what Americans are supposed to eat. They are redone every 5 years. And we have been pushing hard to get the meat off the plate, get the dairy off the plate. In fact, back in 2010, we went to the White House and USDA and said, have a plate instead of a pyramid and leave off the meat. We didn't hear back. So we sued the US government, and they released something called My Plate the following year, which to their credit does not have meat on it, but it has a protein group that could be beans, but it could also be meat, unfortunately. And there's that big dairy group there that they added. And despite the fact that it's soy milk counts as far as they're concerned, which it's good, I mean, we're moving along. It's been really hard to just pull the meat and dairy industries out of federal guidelines. So we're pushing, and the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee met again, and about 2 weeks ago, they released their report. It's better than it's been in the past. It does talk about vegetarian diets. It's good. It even cited our research. But they also said that Americans should have 2 to 3 servings of dairy every single day, This is a contingent of physicians who went to the American Medical Association 2 years ago in Chicago. The AMA adopted unanimously, its House of Delegates, this position that the federal guidelines should say meat and dairy are optional. Well, the AMA is now our ally in this part of the struggle. And just this morning, the AMA sent to me a letter they had sent yesterday to the USDA saying, listen, you guys, dairy and meat products are not necessary. They are not nutritionally required. Please make it clear that they are just optional. You don't have to have 2 to 3 servings a day of these things. You don't have to have any. So people who thought the AMA could never be brought on board, well, let me tell you, they are very helpful. This was on Tuesday of this week. We held a protest at USDA to say end food racism. That's why are you pushing milk on people when, say, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans often can't digest it and pay a price for it. This is John Sally, who testified for us at the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee on Tuesday, speaking out very strongly. Great to have his support. Shifting gears and just finishing up, because I want to make sure that we have time to talk to Moby. Our medical center, the Barnard Medical Center, is now very active in telemedicine because of the pandemic. And all of the states on the left are places where our doctors can see you through telemedicine, if you would like. And on the right are all the places where our dietitians can see you through telehealth visits. So it's a super easy thing to do. Just go to barnardmedical.org. The entire staff follows a vegan diet. They are not going to ask you where you get your protein, and we're glad to help. And lastly, let me mention that this coming a week from tomorrow, this next Saturday, we're doing our very first vegan immersion entirely in Spanish with Marco Regil, who is really Mexico's leading talk show host, and he is delighted to participate with us. And we already have 3,000 people signed up for it, so it's going to be a big thing. So with that introduction to where we are.
Hi, I can see Moby.
Hi.
Are you there? Can you hear me? This is Betsy.
Yeah, I can hear you. All of a sudden, Neal was muted.
I think we have Neal muted. And
there we are.
There we go.
All right. So my introduction to Moby didn't come through.
Can you repeat?
That's a fine thing. I will be quick. The man who needs no introduction is going to get one anyway. Moby is a musician, songwriter, singer, producer, and I have to say, animal rights activist extraordinaire. Sold more than 20 million records worldwide, but he's got a wonderful new song and video out called My Only Love that as soon as we're done here, I want everybody to watch it. It's approaching 1 million views already. It's brand new, but it will just wrench your heart. Moby's been a member of the Physicians Committee for 26 years, has been so incredibly helpful with everything that we have ever done. So Moby, hi, nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
My pleasure.
How is everything going with you these days with this crazy world that we're in?
Well, in a way, I almost feel guilty because I know that so many people are really struggling, but as a middle-aged guy who's kind of antisocial and who lives alone and works alone, my life during the pandemic is honestly almost identical to my life before the pandemic. So when people ask me how I'm doing, I sort of wince because I'm like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, apart from baldness and mortality, I have no real complaints.
Well, you know, many people may not know about how, they know that you have spoken up so eloquently about animals, but they may not know how this happened. How did you get interested in animals? Were you walking down the street and were struck by lightning, or what is it that made you have a heart for animals?
Well, I mean, I'll give the truncated version. I actually, if someone is looking for a TED Talk to watch this, the TED Talk that I did is sort of about this issue, basically why I'm a vegan. And like most people, I grew up with this almost neurological cultural paradox of loving animals and also eating animals. You know, and when I was growing up, I thought it was perfectly consistent to unconditionally love all of the rescue animals we had, and then unconditionally love Burger King and pepperoni pizza. And then when I was around 19, I had my Saul on the road to Damascus moment, where I suddenly realized loving animals and contributing to their suffering and death is paradoxical and inconsistent. So I became a vegetarian in 1984 and then a vegan in 1987. And for so many reasons, this is my life's work. You know, obviously, first and foremost is my belief that animals are entitled to their own life without interference from humans. But also, and forgive me for stating the obvious, but like the role of, you know, animal agriculture and rainforest deforestation, in ocean acidification, in human health, in resource use, in water use, in antibiotic resistance, in, you know, as far as it being the primary vector of pandemics. I mean, there's so many reasons why we shouldn't be using animals for food, which is why, you know, like for me, my commitment to veganism and ending the use of animals for food is more important than anything else I'm doing.
When you encounter people all the time who they may have a heart for animals in their own way, but they may wonder, well, what can I do? What can I do that could make a difference for even one animal, let alone many more? And I'm wondering if there are things that you have found that you can tell people, or advice that you might give them if they're looking for some way to make a meaningful difference.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. When Cory Booker was elected to the Senate, because Cory's an old friend of mine, he called me up and he said, what can we do to help animals? Which I was so inspired by. Like his first day in office, that's, you know, we got on the phone and talked about that. And we talked about the Dr. King quote, you know, the moral arc of the universe is long and it bends towards justice. And I would say the arc of evidence-based reason is also long, and we do what we can to sort of help it, to push it along. And so it's hard because each person and each individual has their own background, their own resources, their own skill set, you know, their own interests, you know, their own socioeconomic hereditary background. So there isn't like a one size fits all prescription to say to everyone, you should do this. What I can say is, like, we now live in this time, like you remember back in the 80s, finding out information about animal agriculture and veganism was almost impossible. You know, unless you were a subscriber to the PETA newsletter, you know, with your column in it. But now, I mean, there's this wealth of information quite literally available at our fingertips. And what I try to remind myself is to do things in a way that's sustainable. And I mean sustainable in a way that we can keep doing them every day for the rest of our lives. You know, because what we see with a lot of activists, they get burned out. You know, they come in like gangbusters, they get overwhelmed, and then a few years later, they get burned out and go back to Burger King. So it's finding a way to be committed to this cause that you can do something every day for as long as you're alive. And I'm sorry if that sounds vague, but that's, again, because everyone's so different. So, you know, like people's activism and the way it manifests itself in the world is going to be different for everybody.
Oh, it's straight from the heart. How did you find PCRM, and what is the Physicians Committee? What has it meant for you?
Well, and one of the reasons why in all of my philanthropy, like I support PCRM more than any other organization. I'm not just saying that because you're here. I'm not trying to be sycophantic on this call.
You've been a wonderful, wonderful help.
But I mean, I knew of you and your work from, as I said, the PETA magazine days in the 80s. And then I think it was, when did PCRM first start?
1985.
So it was around, at some point in the late 80s, because I was so obsessed with the world of vegan activism. And at that point, as we know, the vegan world was very small, you know, and it didn't at that point even involve the big organizations. Like HSUS was as far from vegan at that point as could possibly be. So, you know, the options in terms of 501c3s, there weren't that many.
Right.
And as someone who was obsessed with that world, I think I just heard about PCRM from going to vegan meetups or going to health food stores or reading Diet for a New America, or I'm not sure.
Now, of course, everything's changed because we have social media. So I know you're a huge voice on social media. So you're able to reach a huge number of people.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know obviously many of us battle with social media compulsion and addiction.
Right.
You know, because it's always there and it's so easy to just reach for our phones and try and get a little dopamine hit. I try to be very restrained. Like, I'm only allowed to look at social media 4 or 5 times a day. That's my discipline for myself, you know, because otherwise it can become like cheese or crack cocaine. But it's also, I know so many people who are obsessed with social media, but deeply loathe it because it does in some ways bring out the worst of who we are, except in the animal rights world, it's one of the greatest tools we've ever had. You know, so I only follow vegans and animal rights organizations. I don't follow any celebrities because I don't really need to know if Kim Kardashian is getting a facial.
But people follow you, Moby. They follow you and they want to know what you're doing and what you're saying.
And my goal, I mean, if it was up to me, and all I would do was post, you know, things about animal rights and the consequences of animal agriculture. But if I did that, a lot of people who follow me would stop paying attention. And so, because for better or worse, I'd say a significant percentage of people who follow me because I'm a musician. And so I do have to occasionally post things that are not animal based, which is a shame because, again, if it was up to me, all my social media feeds would just be pro-vegan, pro-animal rights, and nothing else.
But now your new video integrates both of those things. It's very musical. It's very touching, goes right through your chest and grabs your heart. But it also talks about animals too, My Only Love. Can you talk about that song, about that project and what it has meant to you?
The song itself is originally a Roxy Music song. It was written by Brian Ferry a long time ago. My cover version doesn't sound an awful lot like the original.
Right.
But as you know, like when you release a record, you have to make music videos. So whenever possible, I try to make videos that, you know, as much as possible address animal agriculture. And we see pretty quickly whether we've made, and I don't mean we in a royal sense, I mean we as in all of us who make content, you know, we see pretty quickly what's effective and what's not, you know, because as an activist, my goal is not to feel good about my activism. My goal is to be an effective activist. And, you know, social media provides almost like a quantitative dialectic where we pretty quickly, you know, through comments and numbers, see whether something is reaching people. And, you know, the Asperger's nerd in me wants to just post data and statistics, but maybe that wouldn't make for the most engaging music video. So if you can make something that is emotional and narrative, but yet addresses issues, I feel like that's more effective, at least for me.
It sure does. And I've shown this around to lots of people. And a couple things for anyone who hasn't seen it, I don't want to spoil it, but it has to do with deforestation. And you can see people of every age thinking somehow this issue is no longer theoretical because you made it human. And you also showed the animal carnage, for want of a better word, of it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately I'm a propagandist, you know, and I want to make propaganda that leads to a world where people no longer use animals for food and no longer use animals for entertainment and who no longer use animals. And it becomes possibly a very sort of reductive, simplistic criteria, but it's my criteria is when I'm releasing something or paying to make a music video, it's like, am I in some small way moving the needle, you know, towards this better, more sane, more evidence-driven, more rational, more compassionate world where animals are no longer used by and for humans?
Well, all I could say is you have such a wonderful heart. And in pulling this together, I feel you just hit a bullseye with it. For people who look at it, they don't have to be afraid that there's some explicit lyrics that if they send it to their mom, they'll be embarrassed. There's none of that. But on the other hand, there's something even more troubling than explicit lyrics. There's truth in it. And that's what people are going to see.
Well, it's funny in a way, as like I was a philosophy major at college, and I'm obsessed with sort of neural architecture. And there's so many ways to reach people. You know, we can reach people's prefrontal cortex with data and evidence. We can reach people's amygdala by trying to terrify them. But we are a limbic creature, you know, and almost nothing is more powerful than our limbic connection. And if you can create content that reaches people on a limbic level, I'm overgeneralizing, but like that's when I really feel like content can be effective.
And so what does that mean? Does that mean something emotional? Does that mean something logical? What does that mean?
I mean, again, I don't want to be like a phrenologist where I'm overgeneralizing about regions of the brain, but the limbic system, again, very simplistically in a reductive way, is the part of our brain that binds us to one another. You know, that makes us go, oh, when we see a puppy, that makes us love companion animals, that makes us, you know, love rescued cows, that makes us cry when we see animals being abused. Like, obviously there's a lot of interplay between different parts of the brain, but broadly speaking, that's the limbic system. And when you can reach people there, that's when, I mean, for so many of us, that's what really prompts drastic change.
Well, you know, since you're saying that, now that I hadn't really thought of this, almost everybody I know who made a big change in their life, they decided, I'm going to go vegetarian or vegan or whatever. It's often not really an intellectual decision. It's some animal broke their heart, some individual animal they could relate to, and they thought, okay, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So, well, Moby, you have just been an inspiration to me personally and to so many people. You have also inspired our many members to also give generously too, and I thank you for everything that you've done. So much success with My Only Love. I know everybody is going to be watching this, forwarding it, and it's, by the way, as soon as this call is done, if you haven't yet watched it, we're all going over to YouTube and we're all going to watch it again. And
yeah, my one caveat or one is that it does make a lot of people cry.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope a lot of people see it. I can't say it's an optimistic or pessimistic video. It strikes me as saying what has to be said and very motivating. So
yeah, well, part of it was also inspired by about 12 or 13 years ago, I was on tour in South America, and I was flying from either Sao Paulo or somewhere. Uh-oh, did the Zoom call change?
No, weird.
Oh, okay. So I was flying to London from South America, and I looked out the window. It was the middle of the night, and I wondered, I was like, what region are we flying over? Because I just saw lights as far as you could see to the horizon. And then I realized we were flying over the jungle, and these were not city lights, they were fires. You know, the entire, as far as you could see, the Amazon to the horizon was on fire. And that's every day. And I know that it's very easy to get caught up in pandemic-related issues, political issues, which are profoundly important, issues of racial justice, socioeconomic justice, but through it all, we're losing the rainforest. And it's all for animal agriculture. You know, the only reason, I mean, unless it's palm oil in Indonesia, but like the biggest driver for deforestation, 90% of it is either you know, as you know, and forgive me for possibly stating the obvious, is either growing corn, soy, and alfalfa for livestock, or creating pasture land, grazing land for livestock. So we're losing the rainforests because of a product that ends up giving people arteriosclerosis, diabetes, and cancer. It's so asinine and mind-boggling and heartrending. Literally heartrending.
And the burning is to get rid of the forest so that you can have pasture to raise cows?
Or to grow corn and soy.
Right.
Like you know, like on social media, there's always that person who's going to try and like give you the gotcha comment. And I tend to ignore comments because it's a maelstrom of anger and craziness sometimes. But one person's comment was, they said, "You're so wrong. The majority of deforestation is for corn and soy production." And I just sort of exasperatedly said, you know, that corn and soy is for cattle. None of the corn and soy grown in the rainforest goes to humans. It all goes to cattle. So
all those fires, clearing all that forest, destroying the lungs of the planet, are to grow feed crops so that we can have more meat.
And create grazing land. Right. It's one of those two things, yeah.
Wonderful, good heavens.
But 90% of deforestation is in service of animal agriculture.
Mm. I'm looking at the chat. I'm looking at the chat box. Someone just wrote, "This is madness." It is. Anything that you'd like to leave our members with, Moby?
That's a good question. I mean, it's one of the wonderful things about the activist community is we all hopefully inspire each other. You know, everybody, you know, I mean, like when I go to visit PCRM, when I go to visit other 501c3s and NGOs, meeting people who are working so tirelessly. So I guess what I'd like to leave people with is just thank you for your hard work and thank you for your inspiration. Whether you're a doctor, whether you've started a 501c3, whether you work at a 501c3, whether you're just out there, you know, doing what you can as an activist, like I'm so inspired by people's intelligence and drive and commitment to this.
Well, thank you so much for everything that you have done for animals over so many years. Thank you for what you've done for the Physicians Committee. It's been a wonderful partnership working with you, and I know we've got a heck of a lot more. And I want to thank everybody who was with us, but before I send it back to Betsy to finish us up, I just want to mention the song. Do you want to set people up? "My Only Love" on YouTube. Is that the place to go? Or is there somewhere else, Moby, that they should go?
I guess my assumption is it lives wherever people watch videos, but considering the vast majority of us watch videos on YouTube, that seems like the best place to go.
That's where I found it. Okay. It's called "My Only Love." You'll see why. Moby, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Oh, my pleasure. It was really nice seeing you guys. And hopefully at some point when the apocalypse wanes, we can meet up in person again.
I can't wait. All right, back to you, Betsy.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much, Moby. Thank you, Dr. Barnard. And, you know, you were busy talking, so you may not have been able to see everyone who is joining us on the chat. And we just have people from all over the world. And Moby, you're just such an inspiration to us all. So thank you for being with us and for all you do. And so let's close the event out here, and we'll all go over to moby.com because I know that's an easy way to find the video. And you'll be amazed, and we hope that you'll share it far and wide so that more people can see this. So.
And Betsy, yeah. Before we go, I know that many people are fired up thinking, what can they do? And part of that includes philanthropy. So you mentioned a match earlier. Would you just mention that briefly so that people know what you're talking about? That if
yes.
I give $5 today, what will happen as a result of that?
Yes, thank you. So we have a matching gift opportunity, and we have an urgent need right now. And the need is to raise enough funds to reach as many people as we possibly can in cities all over the United States so that they can participate in this free 8-week series, Fighting COVID with Food. The first class starts on August 25th. We're already busy doing promotion on social media, but the more funding we have, the more people we can reach. So your donation will be doubled up to $50,000, and what a wonderful offer. So we would love for you, if you're able, to donate any amount that you can. Please be generous if you can. And you can do that at PCRM.org. There is a red banner at the top of our homepage with a donate button, and that's where you're going to get your donation doubled. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Betsy. All right. Thanks so much to everyone. Have a great day. Head over to YouTube, watch My Only Love with Moby, and we'll see you again on the next Mission Critical. Thank you so much to everybody.